All right. So let's start with a little bit of like info for the day. That'll be helpful. Just kind of generally sharing with y'all what's going on. We should be unfrozen. Okay, this week's flex are both teacher offerings, which is the regular typical flex where you choose where you're headed. Don't default. I still see a lot of people ending up in my flex because they didn't pick one, which is fine. But just make sure that if you need the time, you should use it. Don't default. So there should be something. I think I spelled sabers wrong here, but it's the piece of software that goes on your laptops that's used for testing of some variety. We have to do it every year, and I'm pretty sure it's 10th graders, but that will be something I'm talking about in Flex today outside of our normal Flex stuff. And I also have the Monday morning message that we did not play yet, so we'll start there, and that should time us out nicely until 8:10. So let's go right here. Here we go. Let me turn up the volume.
What's up, Spartans? Welcome to week 33 of the school year, and what a great week it is. The sun is out, and it is Teacher Appreciation Week. I said it last week. This is just a reminder. People love hearing thank you. So if you get an opportunity, make sure you reach out to one of your teachers, maybe give them a high five, say thank you for all the work they do, fist bump, or send them a quick email just telling them how much you appreciate the hard work and dedication that they provide to you. Also, today, Monday, is the first of, I believe, 3 straight Mondays where we have SBA testing. So we have certain grade levels that are testing, other grade levels that are not. If you're not testing here on campus, there's a place for you to hang out, get some homework done, get ahead on things. If you are testing, make sure you know the schedule, make sure you know where you're going. You can come into the commons, we'll try to point you to the room that you're testing in. All right, everybody, let's make it a great Teacher Appreciation Week. Make sure you reach out to your teachers, tell them how thankful you are for their hard work and everything they do to support you. We will see you out there.
All right, sweet. Yes, definitely say thank you to all of your other teachers this week. It is one of our favorite times of year. Okay, so what are we doing today? 2 major objectives that I want us to practice. There's a little bit of in your group work, so you don't have to do everything independently. There's a little bit of me walking through components in React, setting up our utilities, and then quote-unquote summoning. So taking a component that we create like a to-do list and adding it to our future pages. And then I'm also going to talk about wireframing. Wireframing is a little bit more of an artistic expression, which is kind of like a website's draft, where you draw out all the pieces where you want them to go and then code from that. Actually less like a draft and more like a map that's kind of guiding you through what you want your site to look like. So those are our 2 main things that I want us to look at today. How we're going to go about that is I have a VS Code live share already up. You have the screen share as well. We talked last week about partners within your groups. You can think of each other like drivers and navigators, taking turns where one person is doing part of the coding, the other person is checking or guiding, or you could think of this like co-pilots, where each of you combine your knowledge and work with each other, bouncing ideas off of each other, but both of you are, excuse me, both of you are adding to the page. There's also some independent work. There's drawing. I have paper available. I have a handful of Sharpies too, but I will need those back if you use them, please. But there's also digital tools like Slides, Adobe Illustrator, or Adobe Photoshop that we can use to create our wireframes. There's lots of options, and there's lots of ways that you can go about it, whichever way feels right for you. I'm just going to share with you some general sort of tips on how to do that. And what we get out of today is increased user interactivity, again, is a huge facet of web development, because without users, your sites aren't getting traffic, and you don't have the cool messages, the cool things that you have to share through this powerful medium are not accessible. Not as accessible as they could be. Another outcome is we'll have multiple ways to create web pages, that's in quotes because they're drawn out or they're created with like blocks, kind of like Legos, through wireframing, so you get some artistic practice. And when you're working with clients who aren't as tech forward, God, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Excuse me. Okay, so when you're working with clients who aren't as technological as you, It's easier to communicate what your site will look like, what your end result is, and you get we'll get some practice with constructions and arrays today, and then finally examples of what your pages look like, even if you don't know how to code them exactly like that yet. So it seems like a lot, but it's a lot of things we've already done. It's a lot of things we've already sort of experienced, just trying them in a little bit of a different way. So if you go to your agenda right here, which I updated the home page. Sorry, it was taking you to last week's agenda. And we look at Tuesday. Our objective of the sharing is to use React state and props to create a to-do list in our main notebooks. Let's start there. So the live lesson is the to-do list step by step, which is what I'm going to introduce to you now. You can follow along with the VS Code live share, which is this P1 share link right down here. You can follow along with the screen share. You can discuss in your groups, take notes as I'm presenting, and then you'll have some time to work on these things a little bit later today. So let's start here with the creating components, calling components, and then we'll get into wireframing a little bit later. So if you click this P1 live share link, that's going to take you to this site. It's read-only, so you can see what I'm doing, but you're not able to change it. Nobody's able to accidentally break it. Nobody's able to add additional things that might be distracting. So what we're going to be doing first of all is I need to kind of start over creating the to-do list, because the way that I showed y'all on Friday was not actually the best way to to go about creating this component. And a component, if you think about it like a computer part or a car part or other components like an ingredient in a recipe, it's a part of a whole, right? And usually that part gets changed or combined with something else to create something new. In the realm of cooking, in the realm of like engines and computers, lots of small pieces make up one big thing, okay? And that's what we're going to do here with our to-do list by creating a component. So we already went over this briefly on the last time I showed you, but if you right-click in your components folder and create a new file, instead of making a page.tsx, we're going to create a to-do list.tsx. And I need to, again, we did already go over this part, but what I showed you last week was not the best way to do it, so I'm showing you again. So when you create your to-do list.tsx, it's going to give you this blank TSX file, which is the same as a page, but we're not going to treat this as a page. We're treating this as a component. Okay? We're making a recipe ingredient. Jacob.
Should we add another one to like what we did last time, or are we just like deleting it?
You can delete the old one, and you can create a new one if you're coding along with me, because the old one is, it didn't exactly work the way I planned. So, sorry about that. Okay, so since we're creating a component, you guys probably need a second to do the right-click on components, create new file, to-do list.tsx, and then you'll find your way to a blank page like this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about use state while you guys are not accomplishing, but, well, you are accomplishing, but what I mean is going through those steps. Use state always needs the use client command at the start. Anytime you're using React hooks, or a lot of this, bless you, React functionality to make your computer a little bit smarter, you typically need a quote use client. And what I've learned as I've been kind of trying to get these more functional is that apostrophes or quotation marks will both work for this purpose. So if you start with a use client, that will allow React use state to work a little bit later. Now, I'm going to hit enter twice because, again, a computer is a very literal creature. You need to tell it to bring React use state specifically into this component. Okay, this is like telling a carrot exactly what shape to grow in, and then exactly what shape to chop itself. Okay, so that it fits in your recipe. Okay, so we're going to import anytime we're bringing in something from somewhere else. Again, with the grocery store shopping metaphor. Again, with the library metaphor. The information is out there. We just need to attach it to this this system. Okay, so we're going to import from React, comma. And then a pair of braces. They should be yellow in the default color, or the default theme. Okay. And we're going to bring in use state with camel case. And we want to bring it in from quotes. Okay? Now you can see import React use state from quotes grays out because I haven't told it from what grocery store, from what library, from what destination is the computer word, destination, are we bringing in use state, which simply is just React. Okay? So, this is our first step, and then we're going to tell the computer to stop reading right here at the semicolon. Now, did anybody have an idea why this is grayed out currently? Anybody have any guesses? Guesses are totally okay. I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm just looking for guesses. Any thoughts? I'll give you a hint. It'll be consistent with the rest of the day. We don't have anything to attach use state to yet. Okay? The computer doesn't know where to put use state, so it's graying it out until that becomes true. Okay? So once that turns, or once we add use state a little bit later, that will change into the correct color scheme. Okay. We also need to do a little bit more TypeScript writing that's going to help our to-do list better understand what we're asking of it. This I just want you to copy along with me. We're going to write the word interface, which is the word for how your user sees things, like a user interface, right? Or to interface with something means to work with it, or to you interface with your car when you drive it, kind of thing. We're going to interface a capital T task because we're creating something with React. It's going to turn this kind of funky green color. And then we want to hit it with a pair of braces and create a little bucket right here. Okay? Inside of this bucket, inside of this container, we're going to give it a little bit more information that we'll use later. Again, just copying with me. I'm walking you through what I'm thinking as I'm doing these kind of things. The type of interface task that we're creating is text-based. So we're going to write the word text, and we're going to store that text in a, what? It's an ST word. Any guesses? A string, exactly. Strings are ways, or a type of array that we can store data within our site. Okay? String, semicolon, to tell the computer to stop reading. Okay? The next little piece of text that we need to add to this bucket is a completed, colon, and then we're going to write the word, can anybody guess how that's pronounced? Boolean. Does anybody know what Boolean means? Goes through. Exactly. Right. And it's not like the soup ingredient, bouillon. Oh, that's bouillon. Anyway, another semicolon to stop reading there. That completes our interface task section right here. What this is doing is helping the computer understand what we're asking it later on. This is an additional set of instructions, like if you're working on a large Lego set. You're kind of in the middle of a big Lego set. It's going, the directions aren't making a lot of sense. You're like, this can't be right. And then it turns into the final product. It's kind of what we're doing right here. Okay, so now what we need to do is create some constructions. Because we're still in the phase of creating the functional part of our component, it's broken down into how do we construct different parts. So constructions are going to be const, like this. Our first construction is going to be a capital T, lowercase odo, to do, and then a capital L list. Okay? So we're going to construct a to-do list, which is equal to a pair of empty parentheses, which means we're going to be looking for something. That's that Boolean completed, with an equals shift period to create that arrow. You see how once we create the arrow on line number 10 here, to-do list turns into that kind of React, JavaScript, like yellowy color, kind of beige yellowy color. And then we're making another bucket. Okay? This is the start of our const to-do list. Am I going too fast? Or is this a good pace? Okay. So, again, before we get too deep into this code, it is okay to not understand every single step that you're doing. There are web developers way smarter than me. There are people who understand computers on a very innate level, on a very detailed level that I am not at, but I am still able to show you guys how to do these things. And because it's formulas, you can copy and paste them and use them in other ways once you adjust some of the variables. Does that make sense? So it's okay if you're not totally understanding what's happening here. Just trust me. Okay? So now what we're going to do is tell TypeScript, the language that we're currently writing, that tasks is an array of the interface task, which means we're going to do two more constructions. very similarly to how we made our fun fact generator. Okay? So inside of this bucket, we're going to do const, and then a square brackets. Square brackets means arrays. So we're going to store data in some capacity. We're going to go tasks, multiple, comma, set capital T tasks, just like we did facts and set facts. Okay? Now this is where we bring in use state. Okay? Use state is that React hook. Remember that fishing metaphor? There's data in our array, and when we want to get it, we got to send our fishing line with a hook on the end of it, a React hook on the end of it, to grab that data out of the array. So we've constructed a tasks and a set tasks that we're going to ask for a little bit later that's going to use state. Okay? Now inside of use state, we need to create actually some carets like this, as if you were writing HTML. Again, buckets on buckets on buckets. Everything's in containers with one another. Okay? The next step is to, inside of those carets, inside of those alligator mouths, write the capital T task. Okay? You can see, once I do that, it's going to give me a bunch of, these are called IntelliSense, like autocompletes. And you see in that gray section right under here, it says interface task. That is the computer starting to connect the dots. Okay? TypeScript is starting to make guesses. It's starting to go, oh, for sure. You told me to interface task, which is a string or a text string that's Boolean. This is what you're starting to set up now. Okay, cool, I get that. That's your computer talking. Now, because we're calling on an array again, we're going to put a blank pair of square brackets. And then, right outside of the caret, a pair of parentheses. Let me zoom in so that you can see 100% what's going on here. So we started with the square brackets, and then we did the square braces, and then outside of the next bracket come the parentheses. Okay? I know my drawing is not very good, so I apologize, but that's what we're currently at as far as our bucket creation. Inside of the parentheses, we're going to put another square array, like this. And then tell the computer to stop reading with a semicolon right here. What we've done is when we later construct our entire to-do list component, once we finish all these steps, we're going to construct a string of tasks and of set tasks that uses a useState hook to go fishing for this task interface. Okay? That was a lot of mumbo jumbo. All right? Just trust me. This is what we've done thus far. This is the first step in putting together instructions for our computer. Okay? Any questions before we go to the next step? Check your work against mine. I'm going to be putting the copy paste code that we complete in the agenda at the end of the day, so you can see it a little bit later. But I want you to see these steps piece by piece. Okay? Am I good to go on to the next? Okay. Next, construction. We're going to const once more. We're going to do another array with our square brackets. And inside of this array of square brackets, we're going to, instead of set tasks, we're going to go new tasks, because we want this to be interactable consistently, or interactive consistently, I mean. We're going to have new tasks, comma, and then set new tasks, which is establishing another string of data that we'll reference later on as we finish this. Okay? This one's a lot simpler. We're going to set this new tasks and set new tasks to be use states and then parentheses like we did with the fun fact generator, like this. And then inside of those parentheses, just a pair of apostrophes or a pair of quotes. Okay? Now what this is doing is constructing a new tasks array or a set new tasks array, which goes fishing for whatever the string value is that we set a little bit later. Lots of variables, lots of placeholders, lots of stuff that we're going to come back to. Okay? You still with me? Okay, cool. We're going to tell the computer to stop reading with what sign?
Semicolon.
Semicolon, exactly. Good job. Okay, so we're still inside of the construction to-do list bucket. You see on line 15 there? That's where our curly brace closes. Everything, hi, good morning. Everything is going to stay inside of this const to-do list bucket. we got a couple more constructions to create before we move on to our next thing. Okay? So now we're going to do the adding tasks feature, which needs something called an event handler. Okay? An event handler is exactly what its name sounds like. Whenever you do something on a website, that's an event. A click is an event, a scroll is an event, a refresh is an event, right? If you breathe on a computer, it basically is an event. Okay? So with our event handler, what we want to do is do a little bit of constructions for when a user adds a task. Okay? So how do I start a construction? Const, not cosant. That's like Kevin, const. Okay, let me update my attendance real quick, and then we'll move on to the next phase. So check your code against mine. Check it against the partners right now. Make sure that your code's looking good before we move on to our next set of constructions. Okay. Attendance updating took faster than I thought it did. So check your code for the next minute as I read forward on to the next stages. Where I messed up last time is I started doing a the return function too early. We didn't give the computer enough information, which is why we are going through those steps now. Am I good to finish this third construction on line 14? You guys all had a chance to check? I'm kind of observing. Okay, cool. So our next const is to handle add tasks. Add tasks, not tasks. Task singular. Okay? Now this is going to be red because it's confused, because we haven't given it all the information yet. All right? Imagine if you go into a math test that has a ton of stuff on it, and you were only given a snippet of the information. Right? Kind of stressful. Your computer's stressed out right now. We got to make it not stressed by helping it study. Okay? We're creating another one of those portal functions, like you can see right here. Right? The parentheses with the arrow, to me, looks like a portal or like a wormhole. If you go through it, you're going to end up somewhere else. And we're going to do that one more time with equals, space, parentheses, arrow key, equals, shift, period to create our arrow. And then we're creating another bucket like we did here. Okay? You can have buckets inside of buckets. You just got to make sure that each bucket closes off. Right? If you imagine a bunch of cups stacking together, that will work unless one of them has a hole in the bottom. If one of them has a hole in the bottom, it's going to mess up your whole system. Okay? So, const handle add task on line 14 here has a portal function, which means we're going to be looking through something to get to something else. Okay, in here on line number 15, we're going to add some conditionals. Okay, can anybody tell me what a conditional might mean? If you're in Python or if you're in other programming type classes. What is the word? Sorry? If statements, yeah. So if something is true, then something else is probably going to happen. Okay? If I breathe in, then I breathe out. Right? That's me as a person. If you haven't heard, I'm good at breathing. Anyway, so we're going to create the word if, and then if in parentheses, new task, and then you can add a little bit of .trim. That's going to cut out some of the additional white space. Another parentheses. So if new tasks is trimmed, we're going to set it to 3 sets of equals. I'm pretty sure means is true, or the variable is correct. I'm going to do a pair of parentheses or a pair of apostrophes like this. So if parentheses new tasks dot trim parentheses equals 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 apostrophes. So if new tasks after trimmed is equal to blank, we're going to return with a parenthesis like this, or not a parenthesis, sorry, a semicolon. We're going to return to the set the set tasks string. Okay, set tasks like this. Once we return to the set tasks string, we need a little bit more information. Okay, so with set tasks, we're going to add parentheses, then square brackets. They should be blue and yellow in the default color scheme, like you can see here. Set tasks, parentheses, and then we're going to go ... tasks, lowercase, in reference to our string earlier. You can see that things are starting to light up. Okay, different things are getting connected. Different red underlines are starting to go away. Set tasks, dot, 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 tasks, comma, braces. Okay? Now, it's starting to get a little crazy. Starting to get a little packed in the bucket department. Lots of buckets within one another. So, we have set tasks. I'm looking at line 16 here. Set tasks, parentheses, bracket, dot, 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 lowercase tasks, comma. Again, just telling the computer to run through all available possibilities until the one that we're telling it to is the correct one. Inside of these curly brackets, we're going to say space, text, colon, like this. Make sure I'm reading my notes right real quick. Set tasks text. The text is going to be equal to new task. All right? So this is telling us that whenever we call a capital T task, which you're going to get really tired of saying, it's not even going to sound like a real word at the end of the period, with the interface of task, that is a string text file, when we set a task related to that string, it's going to be text based off the new task interface. Let's see what else. New task, comma, if it's completed, something that we'll do a bit later, if completed is set to false, which means it's not completed, right? It still needs to be done. Okay. Then we are going to set a new task, like this. Set new task, parentheses, colon, or apostrophes. Now, while you are creating this code that you see right here, what does this little symbol, kind of looks like a face without a mouth, okay, at the end of set new tasks, where else do you see that? Perhaps there is a connection between these two things, between this set of instructions. All right? What we're telling the new task to do is go use state fishing for whatever information is inside of this string. Okay? It's all coming back on one another. So, this is the construction bucket for handle add task. Let me make sure on my notes here that is all true. Okay, cool. All right. Do we need some time to copy my code? Or are we good? No? We're good? Okay. Swag. On to the next construction. We're going to do a lot of constructing, but the cool part about a component, again, remember the reason that we're doing all this is so that we don't have to do this every single time we want to add a to-do list. We are building a component like you would build, let me think of a comparison here. Let's say you have a specific favorite brand of pens, okay? Mine are the Pilot G2s, 0.7 of course. Say that's your favorite pen, and you only want to use that pen moving forward. What you do is you buy the different colors of those specific pens, and you put them into a pencil case that you know only has Pilot G2s, or whatever your favorite brand is. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're building up our pencil case so that we know whenever we want to use a pen later in our life, we can reach into that pencil case and know what's in there. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Okay, hopefully that's clear. Also, just kind of as a sidebar, anytime my metaphors don't make sense, please please let me know. I have a very comparison type of brain. That's what helps me understand. So if it's making it harder for you or more confusing, I will try to make it not that. Okay, on to the next thing. What do we got? We are going to handle some toggling of tasks, and then we have one more construction come after this. We're almost there. We're almost to the return part of creating the actual component. All right, so stick with me just a little bit longer. We're going to do const. We did handle add task. We need to handle toggle task. So this is two different events. Adding a task is putting new things on the to-do list. Toggling a task, like you would toggle a switch on and off, is marking it completed or leaving it uncompleted. So we're going to do another construction for handle toggle tasks. But instead of doing a portal function, like we've done with our other two constructions, we're actually going to do something called an index. Okay? And it's not the HTML index. Excuse me. We are still going to have some parentheses, but instead of writing something outside of those, we're going to do index : number, which is going to see how many items are inside of the string, index colon number, like this, and then equals shift period, because we get a little bit of arrowing. We're going to create another brace bucket. Okay? So when you toggle a task, it's going to check the index of how many string positions there are. What position do strings start at? 0. Big ol' 0. Okay? They always start at 0. So that's going to be the index number that it's going to look for first. Const handle toggle task equals index number. Moving forward to, now we're going to do another little construction for updated tasks. This one's short. So CNST, construction, lowercase u, updated capital T tasks, because we want the computer to be checking for updates. That's another event that this handler is working with right now. Const updated tasks is going to be equal to square brackets, dot, 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 tasks. And then we're going to tell the computer to stop reading. Okay? So let me make sure that that is correct on mine. Okay, what have we done? On the toggle task handler, when our user tries to toggle a task, it's going to first check the number of positions in the string, because our tasks are being stored in a string, in an array right now. If the updated task still has information on it, we need to do a little bit more computer instructions. So let me find my spot in my notes here. What we're going to do now is copy this updated tasks so we don't have to type it again. Control C, click right under here on line 22, Control V. Now the updated tasks has another callback. We're going to use the index feature again with a square bracket. Okay. So updated tasks is set to index like this. And we're going to go dot completed. So now the index is set to complete. There are no more string positions. Let's see. We're going to put that equal to an exclamation point, since something is going on here. Exclamation point, copy and paste this updated tasks index, everything right here. As you can see, updated tasks index, Control C, click right after the parenthesis, Control V, like this. And then we're going to include the dot completed as well. So grab this. It's the whole line is equal to itself, basically. Control C, Control V. And then tell it to stop reading with a semicolon like this. This exclamation point is checking that this is true. So if updated tasks, based on the index of the string, are all set to complete, something's going to happen next. And that next thing that's going to happen is going to be the function setTasks, and then in parentheses, updated tasks. This is all steps in order for our computer to understand which phase or which step of the instructions are we on. So setTask, updated task, tell the computer to stop reading. And then that is going to finish off, if I'm looking at my notes here correctly. So we did set new task. So we actually need a semicolon here on line 18 and a semicolon here on line 24 to make sure that those two are separated from one another, that the computer doesn't stick them together. We got one more construction to create. Okay? This one is to delete tasks. And what we've done so far with add and toggle is these event handlers that are checking a string if it's filled or not, or if it's interactable or not. Now we just need to remove tasks once those are complete. Okay? One last const. I can tell you guys are I'm losing you. We're almost there. We are almost there, I promise. And this is not all we're doing today. You'll have some time to not listen to me yap. Okay? So we're going to const handle again, because we're doing another event handler. But this time, the event is to delete a task. And the process is going to be pretty similar to toggle task or to add task. This one's the shortest. Okay? Because deleting task relates to the amount of data in our array, we need to reference the index again. So if I'm referencing the index, do I pull from const handle add task on line 14, or do I pull from const handle toggle task on line 20? 14 or 20? since I'm referencing the index, I'm referencing a string number or an amount of data. Yeah,
20?
I pull from 20, exactly. So we're going to take this whole index equals number arrow, and then we'll do our own square, or we'll do our own brace here in just a sec. Copy that. Let me erase my original equal sign here. Control V, paste that. Control S to save. If you haven't saved in a bit, don't forget to save, because I forgot. Space, brace, enter. Okay? This is our last set of constructions that we need to do here. We're going to reference, with deleted tasks, a const of updated tasks. Okay? And as you can see, because we've written it a couple times, my computer is smart enough to go, oh, hey, I've seen that before. I know what that is. It's like that meme where he whistles and points at the screen. Updated tasks. Okay? Const updated tasks equals tasks.filter. Filter is a feature, not filer. Filter is going to read through the other states. Okay? Hooks are active and states are passive, in a way. Const updated tasks equals tasks.filter. Now we're going to do some crazy hieroglyphics here for a sec. We're going to start with a pair of parentheses. We're going to do another pair of parentheses, blue and yellow. And inside of the yellow parentheses, put an underscore, followed by a comma, the letter I, which relates to index. Outside of the yellow ones, like this, an arrow function equals shift period, like this. So parentheses, underscore, comma, lowercase I, outside of the parentheses, equals shift period. Okay. We're going to call I again, use an exclamation point, two equal signs, relating to the trueness of the index, which is the last thing that we write right here, and then a semicolon to stop reading. Now, again, that's going to sound like total gibberish, even to me who kind of knows what's happening next. Okay? All of this is guessing and checking against the other event handlers until the computer reaches a version of true. And true, remember, to a computer, is not necessarily the true to a human. Okay? True to a computer is whatever you told it was true earlier. Right? So, keep that in mind as you program. Your computer cannot make guesses. You got to tell it each and every step, which is why we have so much programming stuff written here. Anyways, we're on line 28 now, if you're following along exactly with me. We're going to set tasks to parentheses to have updated tasks once again. Now, does anybody have any guesses on why toggle task and delete task have a similar end result on line 23 and 28? Any guesses? We'll tell you as well, because there's a lot of intimidating stuff on here. Because both of these handlers are related to the task list being updated, they should end at the same step. Okay? If you have two separate cake recipes, but they bake at the same temperature, you're not going to turn your oven off and then preheat it again just to bake something again at the same temperature. You leave it on. You check again as necessary. Does that make sense? That's why these have the two same set task, update task here. And that is going to finally finish off our constructions. Okay? We basically could wear hard hats at this point with the amount of construction that we've done. Okay, so let me check my thing here real quick. This is on line, which one? 16 in handle add task, text new task. Okay, so if you have a red underline on this, it is okay because this is a text-based sort of thing, unless I did a construction wrong. Yes, I did make a little mistake. So, let me see. Let me make sure. New task. I'm going to go back to line 12 and make new task singular, and then set new tasks also singular, which means we need to also update some of these. So your set new task should be singular. That's my bad. So any type of new task or set new task, there should be only one. The one that updates is updated task or set new task. It doesn't even sound like a real word anymore. Need a new word for it. Anyway, So this is what your code should look like. Again, this is something I'm going to copy paste at the end of the period, but this is all the constructions that provides our function here, or our component, with a brain. Okay? Everybody take a big deep breath. You can even make noise. It's good for your nerves. Okay? So, the next stage of this, we will probably do, I think we're going to do on Thursday, which is creating the visual part of the component. For now, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about wireframing. Okay? So let me make sure that this is also true. Set new tasks on the add task handler. False. Yeah, the false semicolon actually goes outside of the parentheses. I put it in the wrong spot. Sorry. So again, check your code against the copy and paste that I put up a little bit later. We're going to save this. Right now it's not going to create anything because we haven't given it a return function, but it does have the knowledge and understanding to construct a to-do list, which has two separate strings of tasks and then new tasks. And it has three different event handlers, one for adding a task, one for toggling a task completed or incomplete, and then deleting a task. This is an important part of programming and of web development, to break down all of your pieces and make sure each piece is addressed before you start creating a return. Okay? So, great job. Good job. I want to talk about wireframing now, something that's a lot easier to understand from the start. We will come back to this on Thursday. All right? So, I'm going to save that. I'm going to pause the screen recording, and then I'll start up a new one here in just a sec. Okay. So, wireframing. What wireframing is, and you can see on your screen share, I'm sharing my webcam, but on the projector, I'm actually using the dot cam. So the projector is going to have a way higher resolution. It's going to be a little bit easier to see, but I cannot find any of my Sharpies, apparently. Just give me a regular Sharpie, dude. Okay, that's fine. We're going to do it in green. We're going to see how green shows up on screen. Okay, so I'm going to put my name at the top of my page. Okay, and then what we're going to create here is something called a wireframe. And you're about to see why I'm really excited that we work with computers, because my handwriting is not the best. Okay, wireframes. Wireframes, by definition, I don't know the official one, but I will give you one to work with right now, are a draft or drawing of a web page to guide your coding or explain a layout. You don't have to write this, but I want to give you an advanced sort of, not advanced, but prior understanding of what a wireframe is. Okay? Very basically, a wireframe is a sketch of your site and all of the pieces before you start coding it. Okay? There's something that has come out recently I've seen on the TikToks, the trendings. Makes me sound like a 100-year-old boomer, but hear me out. Okay? Of something called vibe coding. All right? We're not going to vibe code in here. What vibe coding is just kind of like no plan, no objective, just coding using AI assistance where AI is doing most of the writing for you to create something based on vibes alone. Okay? That's not an employable skill. Employable skills are understanding what are the pieces that make up a final product and how you can use these pieces to better communicate and to better flex your web design skills. Okay? What a wireframe should include, at a minimum, is navigation, content blocks, and brief notes. Okay? The reason you have those things is because that is what your user is going to care about the most. Okay? If you have the most beautifully created set of TypeScript components, you have an awesome database, you have all these cool features, functionality, if your user can't find it, it's no good. You can have the greatest product in the world, and if it's not at the store, you're not going to make any sales. Okay? That's why navigation is the #1 most important thing to include on a wireframe. Content blocks being the second, because that's what people go on the internet for. Okay? When I am doom scrolling at home, I'm trying to get just content. Right? That's my main focus. How do I get the content? And then what is the content on my web page? And then brief notes is the third and final most important one, because you want to be able to hand this to your clients, or be like, hand this to your other coder and be like, look what I have created for you. Check out this cool draft. Check out this map of what I want my site to look like. Anyway, so I'm going to grab another sheet of paper so that I don't, so that you guys can see how I like to go about creating my wireframes. So what I like to do is imagine my landscape paper. Okay, I can't remember. This is hamburger style, right? And then this is hot dog. I forgot. We didn't use that when I was in school. Anyways, if you're thinking hamburger, hot dog, this is now portrait, and this is now landscape. Okay? Those are the design terms. Those are the ones that are a lot more consistent in the web design, web development, graphic design, layout, publishing, whatever worlds that a lot of you guys already have the skills for. Okay? Portrait, landscape. So with my landscape wireframe, this is for something I'm creating on a screen that's typically wider than it is tall. If I'm creating for a phone, or if I'm working on an app, I'm going to go portrait mode. But since we're making web pages, we're going landscape. Okay, for navigation, I just use boxes, okay? Rectangles and boxes with a label, usually shortened, to something like nav, okay? Now, you can get really, really granular, really, really detailed with how your wireframes come together. You can have logos, you can have ads, you can have this specific type of heading and then paragraphs. You can have this specific type of heading and then paragraphs. Don't jump off that bridge, or that level, okay? Don't go that far yet. Start simply. Start with boxes, okay? So I have my nav bar, my nav box, like this. And then I'll usually separate it by the different types of pages that I kind of want to have generally, all right? Label them 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can put your nav bar wherever. That's the cool part about a wireframe, is you don't have to actually code anything yet. I like mine across the top for a landscape page, for a more digital computer-focused page. You can put it on the side. You can put it a circle in the middle with like a radial wheel if you're going for that 2000s, like Halo 2 kind of look. Okay? I want you guys to start with a nav bar, however you want to put it. Okay? Experiment around a little bit. I'm using Sharpie because it shows up a little bit better, but pencil's good. Start with your nav bar, because again, that's one of the most important features. Spend about 5 minutes kind of trying out a couple different nav bars. Okay? Thank you. It's the first part of your wireframe that's really important. Okay. So now that you've got some navigational options, let's talk about content blocks. The way that I like to do my content blocks are very simple. You can choose the simple route. You can go as advanced as you like, but you need to keep in mind that this is a draft or a drawing of your web page to guide your coding or to explain a layout. That's where the brief notes are going to come into play as you create different parts of these wireframes. Okay? So, when I'm doing my content blocks, I like to think about how I would want the information presented. Again, I use the essay metaphor a lot. Your first paragraph is usually your most important, right? The same way that the homepage of your website is the one that users are going to stick around on. With an essay or with reading, with physical things, people are likely to spend more time reading them. Okay? On a web page, the average user probably spends like half of a second to 1 second on the homepage, and that is enough time for them to decide if it's worth it or not. Okay? So, with that in mind, you want to look at a variety of different sites like news sites, social media sites, entertainment sites like streamers or video sharing sites. Okay? How do they lay out their content? They put things in a big section and then smaller sections. That's how I like to section mine as well. Big section in the middle, because your user is looking right at the center, We're getting more into the design part of website design now. I like to do a big content section right in the middle. Okay. Just label it content. And then if I want to be specific, I can put something like main or video or home, depending on the type of site that I'm creating. And then some smaller wireframes, or sorry, content blocks off to the side. Okay? Let's say that this is content. Maybe this is suggestions. I'm going to put suggests. Maybe this is ads. Maybe this is following. Okay? Maybe this is messaging. Whatever. These are different options. It's a lot easier for me to draw out than it is for me to code every single time. This is another content side. Okay? C-O-N-T for content. Maybe on this side we could do, let's do some account or something. You probably need an account to log in. You probably could do with some settings. Okay, you probably could have a friends section if you're trying to create a social media. You're trying to create, maybe you have games. Maybe you have pages, like if you're trying to do a Facebook type thing, pages. Okay. A wireframe should have navigation and content at its simplest form, and then you get to decide how you want to experiment with the spacing of your site and what content could go where. This is hypothetical. This is sketching. This is ideating, okay? Having ideas. Trying those ideas out before you fully commit to coding them. Okay? Does that make sense? If I check our time here, we have 15 minutes left. Let's spend 10 minutes drawing a wireframe of your choice. All right? You can create any site you'd like, but it needs to have a nav bar, it needs to have content sections, and it needs to have brief notes on what those content sections could entail, or what those navigation bars could entail. Okay? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? This is part of your exit task, so I will need you to turn it in if you want points for your exit task, which I imagine you do. So, I will also say you can have your phones for the remainder of the period. Thank you guys for keeping those away. I appreciate it. That's what we're doing with the rest of our day. Okay? Any questions? Are we all good? All right, give me a thumbs up if you know what you're doing for the rest of the period, the remaining 15 minutes. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a hand, but I'll take it. Okay, cool. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. You're doing very good. It's good to be back on the practice. Yeah, Mia. Yeah, that's your exit task, is drawing on paper. I'll show you the digital versions tomorrow. It's basically the same, but you draw the boxes using, or when you guys are back, excuse me. You draw the boxes using the tools that the digital thing has in store. So let me process these videos and get them uploaded. I'll put your exit task up on the screen so you have a quick reference for it.